Super happy to be here. I was at the Chateau last summer doing a training camp with Barry, and it was such an incredible experience being there. I always love that personal interaction with people. It's fun to it's fun to do webinars like this, but it's also really nice to be able to spend some time with folks and kind of really dig deep into sport and how to do well and how have a great experience. I was there was a gentleman here in the United States that did Kona last year, and he's a very busy business guy and probably one of the busiest guys I know. And so I did an interview with him last week, just asking him, how did you fit in like Ironman training along with all of your work? And his answer was really simple. He said that it all started kind of with that commitment to doing something that he wasn't sure he could complete. Like he didn't know, and he's been doing triathlon for 10 years. He didn't know if he could complete an Ironman. He didn't have a huge sport background, but it intrigued him. And he said that the whole journey started when he made that commitment. And so that's kind of where I wanted to start today's conversation. There's so many aspects to having a great experience in the sport. Some of it is how you train and different training philosophies and, what devices are you going to use and all of the data stuff that we see so much. But as Barry said, some of the pieces that sort of get overlooked or maybe don't seem to quite carry the same weight is sort of understanding just some of the mental aspects of what you're doing. And part of it is sort of creating the framework that what you're doing in the sport. And that all starts with, what's your why? What is it that you want to get from this? Is it fitness? Is it a training goal? Is it community that you want to be a part of? Is it just maybe that intrigue of asking yourself, can I complete a sprint race, an Olympic distance, a 70.3, a full Ironman distance race? That sort of that, can I do it type of excitement that really draws you into action and keeps you accountable. Because, like if you say, gee, I think I'm going to do an Ironman, you don't think that on a Tuesday and then go do the race on Saturday. You think about it and you train for it and you work for it for a lot of months, maybe even a couple of years. So, when I first started competing in triathlon, my why was very simple. I had seen the Ironman on television. This was way back in 1982. And I was just shocked at what a human body could do. Like I came from swimming background. So I had a sport background, but everything I did was short, 100 yards, 100 meters, 200 meter, was my longest event. And so seeing these people do this race that was up to 17 hours to complete was just, it blew my mind, And so my why that very first year that I competed was to simply go to Hawaii and see if I could cross that magic finish line. Very, very simple why. But if we know what what's the magnet that's drawing us, then it also helps us to kind of, like I said, be accountable to our consistency with our training. We explore how we can maybe do a little bit better, explore how we can create like a new you through this journey. And I don't think there's anybody who has competed in triathlon or trained for them that hasn't felt like they've sort of become on some level a new person through that journey. And that's really cool. And I think that's, if we have that in our mind as something that we're going to get from this and experience from it, it helps take the pressure off of, let's say, having a specific placing goal or time goal, and it makes the day-to-day journey a lot more exciting, because not only are we trying to get more fit, healthier, faster, but we're also seeing how it's actually changing our inner landscape, which is really cool. And part of that, once you sort of have that mental What's my why? Why am I doing this? What are some of the things that excite me about this sport? Then especially early in the season, early in the year, like it is now, it's good to sort of ask yourself, what's my realistic time commitment that I can put into this effort, this endeavor? Because probably one of the biggest things that derails people mentally is if they say, okay, I'm just going to throw a number out there. I've got 15 hours a week that I can train for triathlon. But in reality, they've only got 7 or 8. What kind of tends to happen is that you lay out this training plan based on, let's say, training 15 hours a week, but you're only getting in half of that because you have a job, you have a family, you have other commitments. All of a sudden, something that could be really positive sort of turns into something negative because you're thinking, oh, gee, I didn't get the work out in today that I'd planned. I had to cut my long ride short. I had to cut out that swim. I had to cut out that strength workout. And so sort of being realistic with the amount of time that you have to put into this endeavor, this journey, this thing called triathlon. If it really is in line with your life, then you get a more positive reinforcement. Like, yeah, I did that workout today, and that's exactly what I had planned. I don't need to do any more than that. I can't do any more than that because I have to get to work or whatever it is. And so then it becomes a positive feedback cycle as opposed to a negative feedback cycle. And I'll tell you kind of a side story with that doesn't necessarily have to do with how much time an athlete has to commit to the sport, but more what happens when you feel like you're falling short in your workouts. So any of you who've been around the sport for a while probably know the name Craig Alexander. He's an Australian triathlete. He won Kona 3 times. And when he was in the main part of his career, there weren't the GPS devices to measure your workout lengths. And he trains in Boulder, Colorado. And so a lot of the training there is on trails, which means that, if you're running, it's really hard to actually really know how far you've gone. You can kind of estimate. And so he had this 10-mile trail loop that he did. And it was one of his mainstay runs that he would do over and over and over. And, he'd do that 10-mile run and he'd get back home and it'd be like, I did it. I did my bread and butter 10-mile run. I'm going to do it again on Thursday. I did it Tuesday or whatever it is, And so it was really positive. He did what he planned to do. And then fast forward to after his third win in Kona, all of a sudden he started training with devices that actually measured the distance that he was going. And he found out that 10-mile loop was only 8 miles.
Oh, no.
And so all of a sudden, mentally, it blew his mind like, oh my God, I'm not getting in all the work that I thought I was going to. And he never won Kona after that. So clearly, if you have a negative mindset about your 10-mile run, you're not going to win, okay? But, so you get the idea. You understand what I'm kind of saying there. So, be honest with yourself and realistic. And, if there's a stretch to, trying to fit in some of the workouts, that's fine. But as best as you can, try to be pretty realistic with the amount of time you can put in and then build your training around that realistic amount of time. The third piece that can really help you kind of have a consistent mindset that keeps you going over a period of time is to actually make that commitment. What am I committing to? Like that gentleman that I was telling you about who completed Kona last year, he said he made a commitment to do an Ironman. And by that commitment, he signed up for an Ironman. And this was before he had really started training a lot. But he said signing up, sending in that check, getting an entry into a specific race that he was going to target, that got him going. And he said he started by just walking, and then he started jogging, and then he got a bike, and he started riding, and he could swim. So he, went into a master's program. And he said making that commitment is like It's like a mental anchor. What is that commitment what is your thing that's going to be your commitment, that's your mental anchor that's saying, okay, I'm in this. It's super easy to sort of go, well, let's see. I'm not sure what I'm going to do this year, but I'm just going to start training. And, you might still have fun and enjoy it, but at the same time, with a commitment to something in the future that you'll be lined up, and it'll be sort of like your final exam or your real test. That really helps keep things on track with training. And I don't know about you, but I know that when I start training consistently, that I reach in the beginning, it's kind of hard, like you feel like you're trying to get an old car started, but then all of a sudden you reach this sort of switch point where you've built up some consistency in your working out. And this might take a month or two in the early part of the year. The weather's not so great. You have excuses to blow off workouts, but eventually you hit a point where there's this momentum, and it definitely becomes something that you want to do, as opposed to maybe something you feel like you should be doing. And when you make that switch, then it's like super fun, because it's like you're a participant in your journey of transformation, your journey of fitness, and your journey toward a goal that has meaning to you. Like I said, what's that why? What time are you putting into it? You've made that commitment, and now you're going for it. And the piece that I wanted to emphasize with that, you make that commitment. Now what's next? What's next is to start from where you're at with your fitness. Maybe you've even been doing triathlons for many years, but you've had an off season. You're not in as good a shape now as you were at the end of last year. Start your training from where you're at right now. And this is it's a physical piece, but it's also such a mental piece. Like starting your training from where your fitness is right now sets you up for success. If you start your training from where you think you should be already, or where what you're able to do 5 or 10 years ago when you were a younger version of yourself, that can sort of set you up for that feeling like, oh, geez, I've lost it. I don't have it anymore. I was so good when I was in my 20s, and now I'm 67. And I tell people all the time, if you are in competition with your younger self, you are always going to lose. Start with where you're at right now with your training, with the age that you're at, with the experience that you have. And as you do that, then you own your journey. And that also becomes a really positive mental mindset, because you realize, yeah, I'm actually not in competition with my younger self, with anybody else. I'm just in this to see what I can do, to see what I can do with my training, see what I can do with my racing. And if you have other people to train with, a community that you can go out and do some of your workouts with, that's also super positive. I know myself, I could be in like the worst mood ever, and I've got a workout coming up, and I'm going to be meeting a few of my training partners, and whatever that thing that was bugging me in the other part of my life, once I get together with my training partners and we start the workout, it's like they don't care if I've got a problem. They do care, but it doesn't. All of a sudden it just kind of goes like this, and we have a great time together, and so that can be a plus too, as far as having that positive mental aspect. So those first 4 things: what's your why? What are you hoping to get out of this journey? Set up a realistic time management system for yourself. How much time can I put in this week, next week? Maybe it's different in the summer than it is in the winter. Make that commitment. What's the one thing you're going to commit to this year? Is it a race? Is it a training goal for the year? What is it? And then start that training from where you're at. So that's sort of like the beginning part, that if you get all of those sort of 4 pieces put in place, then you're on your way. And then you kind of go into the meat of things. Like, when we're training, part of what is intriguing is when we kind of do those things where we stretch a little bit beyond our fitness. That's how you get faster, how you get stronger. You sort of overreach for a little bit, and then you back off and you recover from it. And so as you're going through your journey, it's good to have those sort of overreach sessions that push you beyond where your current fitness is, but then back off so that you can recover and get strong from it. When you end a workout, you're actually weaker and less fit than you were when you started. But then when you recover overnight or in a couple easy days, then you end up stronger than you were at any point before you started that overreaching workout. And so it's okay to stretch. It's okay to test yourself. See, okay, can I go a little bit faster? Can I go a little bit longer? Can I train it a little bit more consistently? And as you're going through this journey of stretching and then coming back, you will reach points where, the ideal training plan is really easy to set up. Following it is impossible because life does not always follow the ideal training plan, right? And so when something comes up, like you wake up and you're like, geez, I feel really tired today. Should I be training? Try to make a real honest assessment. Sometimes we wake up and we're looking at a workout and we're thinking, I don't know if I should do this today, just because maybe it's a little bit of an intimidating session that you have facing you. And so you go out the door and you start your training, and all of a sudden 15 minutes into it, you feel good. It's like, okay, I was just sort of nervous about this. But sometimes you get out the door and you start training, and instead of feeling better, you don't feel better. And that's the point where it's important to assess and say, no, I need to cut this workout short. Or maybe even before you start, you might say, you know what, I need to cut this workout out and deal with these 3 other things in my life that also have importance, that are weighing heavy on me, so that I then clear the road for an easier training day tomorrow. And so what I'm saying with that is give yourself some hall passes, guilt-free, where you modify your training based on what's going on in your life as a whole. The key to having a great experience in the sport, having a positive mindset in the sport, a positive mindset about what you're doing, is to focus on consistency. It's not about how fast you go. It's not about how many miles you train. It's about training consistently. And if you're assessing those moments when you need to modify your workouts and respond to your body has the ultimate say on what you should or should not do in your training. And if you're listening to your body, backing off when you need to, maybe even on days where you actually feel really good, maybe doing a little bit more, you will see that you do train consistently over time. If there's this judgment that goes with that modification, this is not good. I should not do this. I shouldn't have done that workout. I feel so bad about myself. That sort of sets up that mental thing that's not positive, let's say. And so that's what I tried to do all the time, was sort of assess. Like I would have my ideal, even yearly structure set out when I even started the year. But day to day, tried to sort of modify it based on assessing where my body was at. Simple to talk about, not always the easiest thing to respond to, because most triathletes are type AAA and they want to hit every workout and, fill in that logbook, 100% workout done and completed, but that's not reality. In workouts themselves, especially if they're a workout is tough and challenging. Let's say you're going to do 8x400 on a running track. That's the main set that you're going to do. And you start out and, the first 1 or 2, you feel good because you're fresh. And then numbers 3 and 4 start to get a little bit challenging. And then you get to number 5 and you're like, geez, I'm just barely over halfway. And you get to number 6 and you start thinking, this is impossible. And you start sort of whining. This is too hard. This was the wrong workout. I'm not going as fast as I'd hoped to. Like, wow. You're whining. Whining does not help your attitude. Okay? So what do you do when you start whining? And I'll admit, I can be the biggest whiner of all. I've whined to myself more than anybody would ever imagine. In those moments when I'm whining, I can't make the workout any easier. It is what it is. If I'm not feeling good on that day, I can't feel better if I'm feeling lousy. What can I do? I just take a breath, try and get my mind to be quiet. And in the quiet, then you can feel everything relax. You can feel that judgment go away, that judgment that's saying, I'm not having the workout that I'd hoped that I could have had. I'm not having the race that I know that I'm fit enough to have. You quiet your mind, all of a sudden everything relaxes, and then you're able to just come back into that very present moment of interval number 7 coming up and just running it the best that you can on that day. And maybe, yes, you might know that on another day you could have run faster, but on this day you're getting everything out of that workout that you can. And then you go to, interval number 8 and you complete the session. And with that quiet, there's this ease that just sort of takes over. And actually, a lot of times when we stop that whining, the ultimate goal comes back to us. And this is something that's really good to practice in each and every workout that you're in. When you start to feel your mental chatter go down the wrong road, stop the chatter. And it might take a minute, it might take 5, but eventually. And what you are doing is you're patterning in your ability to also sort of calm yourself down. And that's something that you will be able to use as a very powerful weapon over and over and over in your races, because every race has moments where you feel good, everything's going great, and then, somebody kicks you in the face and your goggles come off, or, you miss an aid station and you needed that water that was there, and stuff can happen where you can start whining in the races too. But if you have practiced that, then you get back into that space where you're giving the best that you can, and and you're staying engaged. You stop the judgment saying this is good or this is not good, and you just assess, what do I need to do to get the most out of this moment? And then the next one, and then the next, and then the next. And this is something that, I had to do over and over and over in my races, and especially in the big races like the Ironman World Championship in Kona. I won that race 6 times, but there was never one where everything went smoothly. There was always moments where I didn't know if I could finish. I didn't know if I could catch the guy ahead of me. I didn't know if I could stay with the competitor who was next to me. And in those moments of sort of self-doubt or fear, like if it doesn't turn out the way I hope, my life is going to be death and doom. It's not. Okay. Like one year, this was in 1992. In January that year, I had started my season in Pucón, Chile. There's a half Ironman distance race in southern Chile that was an amazing race. Really tough competitors. Christian Bustos from Chile, one of the best in the world at the time, was there. And we came off the bike together, and he outran me by 5 minutes in a run that was 10 miles. It wasn't quite a half marathon. And so he ran 30 seconds a mile faster than me in that race. Fast forward to Kona 10 months later, I was sort of, I had kind of gone through my pre-race sort of visualization, was asking myself, how will I deal with certain situations that could be challenging for me? And I had to sort of come up with solutions and resolutions to all of them except for one. And that one scenario was that if somebody was running next to me that was stronger than me, it freaked me out, the thought of that. But I kind of went through my mental list of everybody that I knew was there, and there was nobody in the race that year that I felt like was as strong a runner as me. And And so I went to the press conference and I looked over and there was Christian Bustos. I didn't know that he was in the race that year. I don't know how I'd missed it, but I didn't see his name on the start list. And all of a sudden, I freaked out. I'm like, oh my God, Bustos is here. He outran me 30 seconds a mile in Pucón in January in the marathon. That means he could, if he has a run like that here, he could outrun me by 13 minutes. And I thought, don't worry about it. You're a better swimmer than him. You'll come out of the water way ahead of him. Well, Christian had the swim of his life and we came out of the water together. And so now I'm starting to freak out again. I'm like, oh my God, he's with me. And I'm like, calm down. You're a better cyclist than him, especially at this distance. You'll pull away. Don't worry. We came off the bike together. And now I'm actually triple flipped out because, you know, if he outruns me by 30 seconds a mile, one, I'm not winning this race. And two, you know, 13 minutes that would look embarrassing. So just calm down, try to stay relaxed. He was pushing the pace. I'm thinking, don't let him go early. Don't let him go. And he got about 30 seconds on me in the first mile. And I'm like, okay, just relax. And so I relaxed and I slowly worked my way back up to him. It took another 3 miles to close that 30-second gap. Now, at that point in my career, when I came up behind another athlete, they would look over, they would see me, and I could see the wheels spinning, and they would say, oh, no, Mark caught me, therefore he's going to win. I'm not going to win. He's going to pass me, and then it's set in stone. I finally came back up, and I pulled up next to Christian, and he looked over at me, and his wheels started turning, and I could hear his wheels, and his wheels were going, oh, Mark caught me. I must have been going too slow. And he sped up. And so then I freak out again. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't stay with him. He's running so fast. And then I'm like, just be quiet. And it took a little bit to get my whining to stop. But in the moment my whining stopped, all of a sudden it became a little bit easier to stay with Christian. And then I started to get stronger. And about a mile later, I thought, oh my God, I think I can actually win this, but I need to just be patient, run with him until you have that sense like he's starting to get tired. And we ran together through about mile 13. And then I could just sense like his stride was starting to shorten a little bit. And then I pulled away and went on to win, and he got second place. But I tell you that story because, again, this is something like Barry said in the very beginning, you know, our time together today is to maybe talk about some of the things that can really affect your experience, really affect your racing, that have nothing to do with the numbers and that don't get talked about and get discounted a lot. And so again, practice this in your training, you know, mentally stretch yourself beyond where you're at from time to time in your training. And that resets your boundary, your upper limit. It pulls you into a higher level of yourself. Make sure you recover from it. When you're in your training and you're asking yourself, today, is this the right thing for me to do? Assess. And if you have to say, yeah, no, I need to cut this out today, that's part of it. That's part of the journey. And then when you are in the training or in a race and that sort of whining, chatty self starts kicking in, kick it out. Find that quiet space. And the more you practice that, the more you're going to be able to go to it. And all of this sort of leads into kind of what I call a champion's mindset. And a champion's mindset has kind of like 4 qualities. One is a champion's mindset is very steady. So over time, you want your training to be steady, consistent. Like I said, consistency is much more powerful than actually how fast you're going or how far you go. Consistency is what will, over time, build your fitness, build your experience, give you positive energy, give you confidence. But at the same time, a champion is also adaptable. You know, regrouping in a tough moment or from a tough period in your life, stepping back to regroup is not giving up. It's just a reset, and that's okay. That's adaptability. And, you know, we all have kind of like I guess when we lay out our dreams, we have this yellow brick road that we think we're going to be following to get there. Well, life does not go on a yellow brick road. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, and being adaptable is part of that. Adaptability is a strength. Another part of a champion's mindset is that they're committed. Champions will have really bad days. They will have bad races, but they will not let that derail their commitment to ultimately finding that best version of themselves that they can. And that best version of ourselves each and every day is going to be different. Some days we're going to be invincible. Other days, even an easy workout can be hard, or getting out of bed can be hard. But that having that commitment to being steady over time, that will completely transform us. And think about it just as simple as you go for, let's say, a 5K run. You come home, you feel great. That's wonderful. In that moment, you feel great. That one run won't change your life necessarily. But if you do a 5K run over and over and over and over years, that will completely transform your physical health. It will de-stress you. It will give you confidence in a physical ability that maybe you didn't even know you had when you started. And so having that commitment to doing something over time is such a powerful part of a champion's mindset. And then ultimately, a champion's mindset is quiet. In that quiet, we can assess, what do we need to do here to improve our situation? What do we need to do in this moment? What can I do in this moment to maybe get a little bit more out of who I am on this day, in this race, that type of a thing. So again, a champion's mindset, it's steady, it's adaptable, it's committed, and it's quiet. So I hope that gives you a few things to chew on, and